Another season of Succession is in the books. Can you believe it? I actually finished this a lot sooner than I'm recording it, and a lot sooner than you're probably going to be seeing this, because I think I'm uploading this in a few days. But I breezed through this season, I'll tell you what. The skinny is, I do think it was better than season one. I think we have built upon the foundations of which we have laid. Very directly in some instances. We've doubled down on some core tenets of our philosophy here in Succession. And I think we've come out with a very, or we've concluded, we've evolved, we've grown into a very interesting product here. I think last time I said season one was like an 8 or a 9. I think so far, because of season two, or so far, I would say in totality, Succession is definitely at a 9 at this point. I don't know if it's at a 10. I think that'll definitely depend on the direction of the rest of the show and how much we like said direction. There's a million places to go with this. I will say it has continued to be the thing I want to consume the most. When I'm like annoyed or stuck on something or there's an easy way out, I'm always like, let's just watch an episode of Succession. And frankly, I finished the season like 2 days ago, and the fact that I couldn't do that yesterday or today because I've been very busy and haven't been able to record this yet, I pushed this to be recorded before I even recorded my end of month PowerPoint. So in fact, I could probably go inside after this and watch the premiere of season 3. Let's go, baby. I freaking love Succession. I love watching it. And I love Succession. So we can say that. A 9. You love a 9. I love Cowboy Bebop. I love Vinland Saga. Don't tell certain people I said that. But, we'll have to see how it goes to see if it can glide. Oop, I just dropped the microphone. All the way to said 10 territory. Looking at the little image we've got here is kind of interesting because I guess Rhea, besides Rhea, most of the characters are pullovers from season one. We're not introducing too many new characters. We've got a few new Kendall love interests. But outside of that, we're sticking with the core cast here. That's kind of interesting. We'll see if that's the same in season 3. Where to start? We talked a lot last time about Succession sort of being about restraint and restraint in having characters be honest, which is a very easy thing to do, right? Have characters be honest. The lowest form of storytelling or something is where characters are 100% honest all the time and they just talk through their feelings or something. And there's like a step up where sometimes they say what they mean, sometimes they don't. And Succession is very much a show where almost always the characters are not saying what they mean, and they're annoying, and they're undermining, and they're scheming, and all sorts of things. They're playing the games. They're also emotionally unavailable, don't want to open up, are always on the defensive, and don't want to be honest without being sarcastic in certain situations. That being said, there were very clear and immediate direction shifts in how we're handling that restraint. Mostly with the Shiv conversation in episode 1, where Logan basically offers her the company, which was definitely the best scene in the show up until that point, I think. Succession was just such a show of like characters not being honest or being vulnerable in any way, and I think season 2 has a lot of that in many different ways. And I think the first one is like that slow melting conversation with Shiv where she's maintaining her lack of interest until by the end of the scene she is agreeing to the job and like crying that it's finally been given to her and that she's like always wanted it or whatever. It's a very interesting scene. The whole scene, because of the way the show has never let anything good happen or has never let characters be truthful without one of them pulling the rug out. I was expecting the whole time for the plug to be pulled, for the rug to be pulled, and it wasn't. It was eventually, but in satisfying ways. And something actually interesting happened because I was so in love with that scene. I was like, oh my god, Succession in episode 1 of season 2 has gone to a whole new level here. This is crazy. I was watching the Normies, a YouTube channel, their reactions to this as I go. Kind of sporadically, when I'm bored, I'll put them on. I have watched all of them up until the finale of season 2 now. And the comments section kind of spoiled me because they kept saying like, "Oh, it's Logan's abuse is on display here" or something. They're basically implying that he was playing her in this scene, which I don't think he really was. And that also brings another interesting discussion. And it is probably my core final hang-up with the show, is that it's so at its core against the characters that I think it it almost ideologically gets in the way of the show being better than it is, because it wants to stick to its themes of like rich people are annoying and gross and power hungry, and like these news people are bad. Like there's sort of two core messages here, like the anti-Fox News message and the anti like rich family oligarch stories or themes. And it does feel, because it is the core final hang up, it does feel modern. It does feel like this is definitely like the sort of, I don't know, the cool woke ideology, not like boring woke where we're just screaming about idpol or something, but the cool new woke where it's like, it's about class and like being more in tuned and more interesting than like boring woke, I guess. And you need commitments to things like against sort of anti-capitalist themes and stuff like that. And it feels ideological in that sense, and that does make me think less of it, I think. Which is weird, because when you compare it to other drama series that are like it, like, say, The Sopranos or Mad Men, where the same messages are sort of there, but they feel a lot less political. And I think the only reason they feel less political is two possibilities. One is that they feel less political because I watch them retroactively, so I'm not as in tune with what the talking points of the time would have been, and I don't see them so easily repeated in the show. The other option is that it wasn't so politically infused in its thematic messages. Whereas Don Draper is a bad guy because he sells cigarettes. Don Draper is a bad guy because he's kind of rich and annoying sometimes. Don Draper is a bad guy because he mistreats women sometimes. And all these things are true, but they feel like just happenstances of what would be real if there was a person like Don Draper, where it's in his best interest to sell cigarettes, so whatever, we'll overlook the moral implications. He gets arrogant with the way he handles women, so he disregards them a lot of the time and treats them less than he should or morally ought to, because he has an affection of women, an inflection of women. He has lots of women. He doesn't need to care too much about this. And he can be annoyingly, irritatingly rich because he's rich. Like The Sopranos is kind of trying to beat back on the being a mobster is like bad, being a violent, crazy person like this is bad, being selfish is bad. Succession has those same messages. It is like the actively visible political stuff, I guess, though it's not that bad. It's only slightly worse that makes it notable, and I think it is because it's slightly more modern that it's more noticeable to me right now. And perhaps because it's slightly retroactively modern, it's like feels like these are sort of things that I probably would have been more in tuned with like 5 years ago, but now is sort of passé to me because it's like we've all been through this arc where we believe these things and we've kind of moved on or something like that. The main problem here is it feels like the ideology getting in the way of the characters and the plot, and having them ever have anything close to happiness or resolution or cathartic climax or something, because we don't want to abandon the message. We don't want them to ever be seen as like good people. Whereas I feel like those other shows aren't scared to do that. And I think those other shows are much more, even though again, the core bigger message is that those people in those shows are bad. They still a lot of the time spend a lot of time making those guys cool, like making Tony and the crew cool guys who are funny and you would like to hang out with, making Don Draper and Roger the funniest guys in the room who wisecrack and know how to solve problems and everything. There's a power fantasy and a community fantasy in those shows very corely. I think Succession, probably in response to those shows, goes extremely out of its way to like divert from those traps. Like, you don't want to be part of this family. You don't want to be around these people. Even when the siblings are kind of hanging out, it's like a funny little dynamic. It's still like so toxic that you're like, I don't want to be one of these siblings. Like, I don't want to hang out with these people. I don't want to be on this boat. I don't want to be doing this job. I don't want to be in these crash meetings. I don't want to be bore on the floor. Whereas it's very different in those other shows. And this is the thing we were saying last time. It's almost like super respectable that Succession has gone in such a direction to make them despicable, besides nothing else. I think it hurts the catharsis of the show in places, though. But it could just be the method of the show to deliver the catharsis in the end, though I doubt it. I don't think there's going to be a happy ending or anything. It'll be interesting if one of them does end up with the company. It is interesting if that is the case, that I haven't been spoiled on who it is. Though if I was leaning towards anyone, it would probably be Roman right now, because they seem to be lining him up for like this big arc. And he is kind of the most like his dad sometimes, and also the least like his dad sometimes. I guess you could say that about all three or four of them, kind of. So yes, we were tying this into the Shiv scene, where the Shiv scene, I don't know, the Shiv scene, if it was the last scene in the show, would be like a great ending in delivering a catharsis at the end. And I think the show might be more liberal in giving happiness to its characters right at the end. Like if Kendall becomes like poor or something, but he's in rehab and he's like happy being poor, like I could see some sort of ending like that. I don't think he's going to be happy being the CEO of the company and still being rich and being a prick. So yeah, it's interesting that the Shiv thing eventually withered. And yeah, because that could have been like the climax of the whole show, like Logan realizing that his daughter is actually the smart one and she actually admitting she wants it, and there we go, payoff, that's it, the show's over. It's not. It's in the first half of the show at the beginning of the second season, so it has to unwind. And I like that it unwinded naturally, where it's like Shiv did keep fucking up and put Logan in a position to look for outs. So that is interesting. So I don't hate that it undermined like that moment or that scene. But it is interesting. And it is interesting that it even flexed it for a second and showed you like the power of a scene like that, especially how long they spent on those scenes and how long we spent with those characters like coming to those realizations and making those decisions. It was pretty blow away, especially when Succession also does this, where its restraint is most respected, is it puts the characters in positions where an honest conversation would obviously be much more interesting and like the greatest scene to ever exist, and they don't do it because they refuse to have them be honest, or they refuse to structure it in such a way. So I guess this is probably an intentional parallel because it's the first and the last episode. But in the first episode, it is at that beach house where we do have this, the climax of this moment is the scene with Shiv. But there's basically Logan is trying to figure out if he's going to sell his company. He's got everybody he trusts and everybody this will most affect in a room, and he's like asking for opinions. But they just start doing this Succession thing where nobody's like wants to overplay their hand or give an honest opinion, and they're all trying to feel out what they're meant to say and things like that. Whereas in a normal show where this was a cathartic moment and it was like all our major characters and they had one core problem they all had to tackle and they had to all pitch ideas or something, and you could see like you could interestingly characterize each character as having a different solution to the problem, and you could make your own mind up on which one seems the best and which, like, maybe there is an obvious best one but Logan doesn't choose it and that says something about his character or something like that. And you can have individual scenes or individual monologues from each character where they go through their plans. And then that doesn't happen. And then Logan goes into the room himself sort of out of anger and he tells them to come in one by one. And that's another great opportunity where, again, we have a central problem. We have 6 very defined characters that can all go into like the boss character and pitch their idea. And this would be an extremely interesting, I would have loved 10-minute scenes with each of them doing it and what we could have explored about their characters. And if we had an honest, heartfelt moment or something like that. And they kind of did that with just Shiv at the end. So it's like it basically got itself to the scenario where this could have been the greatest scene of all time and then chose to like shorthand itself because of its restraint, because it doesn't want to be a show like that. And it's like commitment to not falling into those other traps. It's very, very interesting. Because I think Roman and Kendall both do get opportunities to pitch their ideas in there. Or maybe it's just Roman because Kendall's like very out of it at this point. And Roman, like, unimpressed, like, doesn't impress. But Shiv does. And there you go. And she gets chosen in the interim. Then at the end, they're having the somebody needs to die for us moment where somebody has to take responsibility for the crew's mishaps. And it's like not an integrity thing where the person who's most responsible will be held responsible. It's like we all have to decide, like, the public needs a head to roll for them to forgive us or whatever. And again, it's another super interesting scene where in another show, maybe a more violent show or something, where it was like The Sopranos, and it's like somebody at this table has to get shot at the end of this and we all have to decide. and like each character giving a pitch and how they would all interact with each other and which interesting characters other characters would put up to be the one to take the bullet and stuff like that. And they kind of do it, but they also do it in the Succession way, where it's like Kendall's like saying, I'm not even saying this, but whatever, what if it was that guy? And then he's saying, no, what if it was that guy? And they all kind of go around, but they don't really have interesting answers, and they are all trying to play a longer game. Like, Shiv seems to throw Tom under the bus, but it's kind of part of a long game, but then you're supposed to ask yourself, is it? And it's like a lack of honesty and a lack of, like, going through more methodically each character and having that scene be, like, 35 minutes long or something. It, like, undermines itself in a very interesting way to have sort of these sort of cucked scenes that are like you are in awe of because it's like so intentional. And it's very, very interesting. Or again, restraint is kind of the operative word here, I guess. But those are all great scenes when we're the stakes are on the table. We've got to figure it out. We're all here, and all the core characters, of which we do have a small collect few, as I was saying. There doesn't seem to be too many new characters, and Raya isn't in either one of those scenes. And she's probably gone, or to be a background character forever after this season. It's... Oh, I was going somewhere else with that, but I forgot midway. It's fascinating. It's great. These are probably the best scenes in the show so far. I was saying something about someone. In another aspect, we were talking about restraint. In another aspect, there are scenes in the show now that verge on the power fantasy thing, kind of. And how they get around this is they usually just have them doing something like terrible. But there are moments where everybody is kind of on the same team for most of this season, which is obviously, this is probably going to be the only season like that, because season 1 wasn't, and it looks like season 3 isn't, and I doubt season 4 will. But what was I just talking about? Oh, everybody being on the same team. They would have like crisis meetings where it's like all the characters, they do have like one thing they have to do, like, oh my god, the piece is going to come out exposing us for covering up those rapes and murders. What do we do? And it's like it leans into the power fantasy bit for a second of like everybody's pitching, everybody's got strong ideas. Logan then chooses one and like marches off, or he has a bit of a temper tantrum. Like, these are very Don Draper-esque scenes. And I do like it because I feel like none of those happened in the first show. Well, in the first season, it was always at the detriment of some of the characters, and you always had mixed feelings. Like, Logan sort of having that standout moment where he tells everybody to fuck off in the board meeting where they try to take over. Like, you kind of feel bad for Frank and Campbell in that situation. Whereas here, it was like the characters against, like, the outside forces, which are the forces of good. But still, you sort of root. The show is kind of allowing you to root. Though it is different, again, to Mad Men or The Sopranos or something, where you're supposed to be rooting against them is more subtext. Here, it very much is the text, and the subtext is almost the fact that you're still rooting for them in a sense. So it's interesting. Again, it's like a play on these types of stories. I like it a lot, and I like how it weaves this meta narrative with all like my other favorite shows. But yeah, generally that's a general thing about restraint. We'll talk about the direction for season 3 at the end, I think. My next note is about Kendall's direction as a character coming into this. Now, I was reading Wikipedia right before this just to refamiliarize myself with each individual episode and what was sort of in each of them. Just a bit of a reminder. I didn't realize that it was literally like 2 days after the wedding he gets pulled out of this like very rich, fancy rehab center. I thought it was like maybe like 2 weeks, but no, it was like right away, which is interesting. Kendall is acting very weird. Obviously, he kind of was responsible for the death of that guy last time. So he's in a very like drab mood. He's like all his business ideas are undermined. He's under his father's thumb. He's at a rehab center. Like, he has this very like down demeanor for at least like the first 6 or 7 episodes of the season. And seeing him like this, and sort of seeing him like that be like more not complacent, more competent than he was like in season 1 is like kind of super interesting and kind of cool that like Kendall's like succeeding now. Like, he succeeds in like getting rid of Vulture and all that stuff. It's not Vulture, right? It's Volta. Kind of similar. and like he's very ruthless in what he has to do, but it's because he has like no feelings because he feels dead inside because he killed a kid, and it's like allowing him to be a better like evil CEO. That was like really cool to see, and to see him like achieve and not be able to like celebrate in the spoils of it, and also like see like Shiv, who like Kendall was kind of the one you were most rooting for in season 1, and now Shiv, especially at the beginning, is like kind of the one you're most rooting for in season 2, and so now like Kendall is like winning, and it's like, oh no, it's like kind of pissing you off that he's in his little sociopath mode, he's so like competent, and you're like mad at it, even though you probably would have asked for this last time because you want like Shiv to succeed. It's like crazy. But yeah, that general demeanor he had, and obviously where it goes, now that I've seen the whole season, you can see the arc of like down to nothing, back to everything. Because at the end, he does, Kendall ends up being the one on the chopping block, the one that Logan decides is going to sacrifice himself for the team. And before he does, Kendall does have like a heart-to-heart moment with his father. And I think Roman says this in one of the episodes where it's like, you really cannot make up your mind on not whether or not you like worship your father or you want to kill him. And Kendall has kind of been on the worshipping his father thing for the whole of the finale, and then it sort of has a moment where he gets selected, and then he takes that opportunity where he's like sacrificing himself to ask his father if he ever thought he could actually do it, which is like run the company. And it is great that this is another example of like Succession's restraint, where it's like characters never give answers, where Logan is like, I don't know, maybe. And then Kendall kind of presses him and he says, oh, you kind of lack a killer instinct, which is kind of what everybody's been saying about Kendall the whole time, and has been very obvious. And Kendall takes this opportunity, as we find out at the end, to sort of internalize this and realize that he has the opportunity now to blame it all on his father, and use that potential killer instinct, which he does, which seems to be the propulsion for next season, which will be Team Kendall versus Team Logan, and how sort of characters will divvy out among this is very interesting, because it seems like Greg has gone with Kendall, and that would obviously, Tom is probably with Shiv, who's probably with Logan, so that would put Tom and Greg against each other, and also I assume Roman will probably end up with Kendall, which will be interesting. And the sides will sort of develop. I don't know where like Frank and Jerry go or whatever. Jerry would probably go with Roman after this season. Wow. So yeah, it's interesting. I am very excited to see where the season goes and sort of how the battle lines will be drawn, and how Sandy and what's his name? The guy that's in it way more than Shitty Sandy is. The Kendall's friend from college or whatever. Where they all fit into this and everything. Oh my goodness, how exciting. It will be interesting if Shiv and Tom end up on the opposite sides. I don't know if they're going to get a divorce. They seem to have come to the conclusion that they don't love each other, but then Shiv like kind of saved him for being the one to get killed, so that'll probably like add another season to their doomed relationship from there. So yeah, I guess it's our speculation hour, but yeah, it's interesting that like, was Kendall like kind of waiting for his moment the whole time, or was it that final scene that set it off for him? I know that like Logan says the not an important person thing or whatever, or not a real person thing, and I know in all the normies comments people were freaking out about that's the moment where Kendall realized that his father did know about everything and that he had to sell him out or something. That's like fine, I guess that fits, but it's not too interesting to me. Like Kendall being swept along by some sort of moral principle is like lame. Though he does show that repeatedly, like when he's first made aware of the allegations, he's like, no, we can't downplay it, like bad things happened, we should take accountability or something. That reminds me of another really, really, really great scene, which is Shiv like talking the witness off the stand, and sort of doing it in a very honest way where you can't tell if Shiv believes that she's doing a good or bad thing in the moment, and whether or not she actually is doing a good or bad thing by the woman. That was a very fascinating scene, the scene in the park, where like she counsels her not to even trust her being Shiv, and the other one being the victim lady, and she has to do what's right for her, and like the problems publicity would get, and how the government is trying to get her to do what like they want her to do, and she has to choose her own path and stuff like that. Very, very interesting scene, because it is another morally dubious scene. Like, it's probably, like, on the face of it, a very evil thing to do, is, like, to save your company by talking a witness out of, and sort of intimidating a witness or something. But then it's kind of taking the witness, and then Shiv has this history of being, like, a more liberal person, so does she actually believe in these principles? Is she just both silencing them for her own benefit and stuff like that? It's a very interesting scene. Just looking around, going wherever my mind takes me. Another funny scene was when, I think it's Willa, right? That's Connor's girlfriend's name, where she gets mad at the reviews of her play and makes a funny noise and throws the iPad over the boat. That was really cool. I like that. Kendall being really evil to her actress friend. Remember that? He put her on a plane and told her to get out of there. That wasn't cool. But Kendall does have another different love interest, which is Naomi Pierce. I can't believe I remembered the name. Who's like a similar story to him from the Pierce family, which is sort of the liberal alternative to this conservative Roy family. That whole episode, there were a lot of episodes that were like conceit episodes in this season, where it's like, this is the episode where they do this thing. And usually I hate that in shows, because I like the scenes where Tony and the gang are just hanging out and going through a bunch of things, and he's spending some time at home, and he's going to a bunch of variety of different locations, and same in Mad Men or something like that. I don't really, especially on rewatches, it's like, oh, this is the suitcase episode. Yippee. Now I know exactly what to expect. It's like, oh, what's going to happen? There's sort of an ambiguity. I didn't even really notice, and I really did like it in this show, where they would all be in one place and interesting things were happening. I think a big strength in making those episodes fun, I think, is the very, very, very core central cast. Because even in Mad Men or The Sopranos, you would have like characters come in for singular episodes, where it's like, this is kind of the episode where the A plot is dealing with this character, or it might even be a reoccurring side character, but like one who gets like one episode a season or something. This show is every episode, it's the same group of characters, and they're in scenarios, and I think that is probably an underrated like core goodness of this show. Oh yes, just rounding out my Kendall notes here, there is that scene where him and Shiv hug, which is interesting, because him and Shiv don't have too many honest talks, and they are sort of the most outwardly competent siblings. At least they were at that point. Roman has sort of become more competent, which is interesting. And they don't interact too much, so it's interesting to see them interacting kind of have a nice moment where they cuddle. I imagine there's going to be a lot more of them like going at each other's throats in this coming season, where it's again, I'm pretty sure Shiv is going to be on Logan's side, so it'll be her against both boys, I think. Because Kendall and Roman do sort of have that bond, and then Roman and Shiv definitely have. Are they supposed to be twins, or are they just like the two younger siblings who always fuck with each other? Like, they're always getting into like actual physical fights. It's cool. Roman's girlfriend continues to be fun. Obviously his real girlfriend, Jerry. Now that's a fun time. I do like all that stuff. Them having their little dynamic and their little coupling stuff. And him jerking off in her bathroom every once in a while. I like all that stuff. It's really interesting. Jerry's a great character. We all like Jerry. There's also like the guy with the big head and the tiny neck, who the normies kept referring to as like he was like a famous actor or something. He's like a new character. There's like the loser guy that's not Frank. That's the other old guy. There's also the bank guy. They're all interesting characters. I like them all. And it is funny that Frank is just still like around. Honestly, it'll be interesting which side he ends up with. I feel like he has to be with Logan just because he's been with Kendall so much that like for him to go back is like odd, or it'll just be like in episode 1 of season 3 he's just with Kendall already and they don't even have to talk to him. I feel like Roman is definitely at the beginning going to be on Logan's side, and then there'll be some sort of a conflict and he'll go and be with his brother. There is also that cool moment where Roman gets slapped and Kendall gets really mad in defense of him, like he did when Logan like smacked his kid. And there's obviously like some childhood trauma stuff. I wonder if we'll ever get like a proper flashback. I feel like we won't, because they are adding like little scenes to the intro, and I kind of like it. And I like the intro is like this sort of dream state, doesn't feel real type sheen to it, and like that as their backstory is interesting. And the implication of like, well, Logan probably hit the kids a little bit as a kid, and that's why Kendall is so defensive of them and standing up for them. And also it's interesting, or like he was mad at Shiv, but he hit Roman because he wouldn't hit his daughter type shit. But yeah. Um, what else do my note have to say here? Them all being on the same side is nice, and Roman's left being Roman. I don't know what I meant by that. But also, just on the siblings before we move away from them, they all have that really, 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 really great scene where it's kind of like the scene in the season 1 finale, but this is the season 2 finale. In the season 1 finale, they have the scene where they're all on the boat and they're like getting high or whatever, and they're just having a little sibling hangout. Here they have one where they're on the oh, it's another boat, huh? It was on a little tiny boat, and now it's on a big giant cruise boat. Not really a cruise boat. Where they all make the funny noises to each other about how they should talk to each other about their feelings or something, and they're mocking Roman for trying to have a nice moment. I really like this idea. Is like, I know what it's like to be in a group of friends where like it's annoying when people try to bring up like being nicer to each other or something, and it's just like kill yourself. Now, obviously, part of the show is that like, oh, obviously, it would be nice if they could talk to each other because talking to each other is good or something. Like everybody should go to therapy type Twitter shit or something annoying like that. I really like the portrayal here of like trying to be genuine is the easiest thing in the world to mock, and we're all gonna jump on that because it's annoying. Um, and deep down, we're all scared to confront it or bullshit like that. And I like it. I like that a lot. There's another scene because it's kind of bring to the forefront again the subtext of those other shows where it's like, yeah, like if all those characters talk to each other about their feelings, like it would be better. But they never have that like explicit conversation in the show because it's like supposed to be part of the subtext. You like understand if you're a cool guy. Making this like the obvious text and then mocking it very directly is like it is almost like an iteration on like adding another layer to that sort of dynamic. But that dynamic is so on the front where they have taken the subtext and made it like the whole text of this show. Um, there's another scene like this where, and it's sort of like wearing its heart on its sleeve of like, this is how people act type descriptive realism, and how this is like the statement, like, you and your siblings really should have a heart to heart moment or something, but instead you're going to mock each other in the funny voices because that's what people do. It's like, oh yeah, that's awesome. That is what people do. There's a lot of identification with that. There's also a great one where Greg and Tom are having an argument, and Greg has like hang-ups of working for the news division because he's like, it's against my principles. And Tom has this funny monologue, as he would, about how like principles, this isn't a Charles Dickens like novel, shut the fuck up and kill yourself. Like, oh yes, this feels like very real. This is like how people's minds actually work. They might understand the concept of principles, they might loosely pretend they have them, but like, we're just all trying to survive here. Like, kill yourself and your principles. Now, again, the show isn't really indulging in that. It is kind of highlighting at the core of it, like, the corruptness that's there. But I do feel seen in these scenes, and I go, oh, that's really cool. And the show's never preachy enough because the subtext is such the text. It doesn't feel the need to, like, reiterate, be nice to each other or something as an actual point. Nor do I think that'll be the resolution of the show or anything like that. That would be crazy if Succession is almost the most cynical out of all these shows in interpersonal dynamics, and it is the one at the end that has like a positive, happy ending. I doubt it though. I don't think the show has the balls to let rich people be happy. Kendall and Greg together, that's like kind of a new dynamic duo that is all set up for that final scene, which I assume we're going to be getting a lot more of moving forward rather. There is that great scene in the finale where it's like I guess it's the season finale where Roman's like, somebody's like, what is Greg doing here? And Roman's like, I'm always asking myself that. And it's like, oh, we know why he's here now. Little bit of foreshadowing there. But yes, Kendall and Greg together. It was cool seeing Greg like with other characters, and I think that'll probably be what happens more. Is that like we did explore some new character dynamics here, right? Like Roman and Jerry were around each other a lot, and I always get concerned because Logan and Roman kind of sound the same at the end. So I'm like, did I just say Logan? I didn't mean that. I meant Roman. But I'm pretty sure I did say Roman, and I'm just confusing myself after the fact. Whew. Like new dynamics, like maybe Shiv and Kendall do argue more, or maybe Tom and Roman have more scenes, or Tom and Logan maybe. Tom did eat Logan's chicken at the end of that argument they had, so that was pretty funny. And there's like a separate scene where Shiv and Logan have an argument about it. He ate my fucking chicken, he says. It's pretty great. The Logan Roy fuck offs are still like the greatest little sound bites of all time. There's like a ruthless edge to Kendall now with his deadpan expressions. True, that's true. Kendall was very easy to like because of his like deadpan, dead inside emotionality. Then obviously gets less easy to like, especially in that Scotland episode where he's rapping and you want to kill him because it's the most cringeworthy thing you've ever seen in your whole life. And also the way he treats the girl there. And it's like, oh no, every time he gets like some confidence, he starts being terrible to women and arrogant. It's like, oh, this is not good. Like it's like poison success to him in a sense, where he's like a much nicer guy when he's not successful, though he is just randomly stealing sometimes, so that's funny. What was I saying about Kendall? He's got a ruthlessness. True. It'll be interesting to see how they handle this. I don't know if this is just the conflict for season 3 and like by the end they'll have like a winner or something, and then the other ones will have to fold into it or something like that. It's interesting. Oh, talking about the empathy things. Like, it was very easy to feel sorry for, I guess Kendall, and I was going to go to Tom, but I guess for Roman too a little bit. Where it's, where, like, he gets held hostage and all that stuff. And he's also, like, kind of slowly maturing and getting better at his job. And he gets whacked by his dad, I guess. A great follow-up scene to that where he's like, that's not something I would do. Great line, Logan. We love it. I was going to Tom. Tom is an interesting thing because I feel like we're supposed to feel sorry for him a lot more than I'm willing to feel sorry for him. And I think we're laying on the cuck stuff a little bit too much. Where it's like, he doesn't want an open relationship. He just loves Shiv. And, like, he turns down the cool threesome they're going to do to prove the weight of the possibility of the success of their open relationship. But Tom says no because he's such a nice guy. And he really just wanted Shiv all along. And isn't Shiv a bad girlfriend? And it's probably because I like Shiv, obviously, because she's, like, a strong lady, and I like those characters. But I'm always like, shut up. And don't try to make her look bad in comparison. Which, obviously, she does look bad a lot. But yeah, especially in the finale, we're like tying into this. But then it is funny seeing him like blow up. There are 2 like big Tom blow ups right after the hearing where he comes back and he's like nearly crying, and he's like starting to yell at people, and he's like going off the wall. And then Greg comes in, and Logan has to tell Greg to get the fuck outside and shut the fuck up, because Greg thinks it's all about him. It was crazy when they named Greg in the conference room or whatever. It's like, man, they really should have just like given a fake name to get those boxes out or something and paid that guy off. Seemed like a terrible way to do this. Oh, and it's funny when the lighter doesn't work, so Greg gets to steal some of those pages back. All classic stuff. But true, there's a lot of feelings bad for Tom, and I guess even I felt bad for him a little bit. And it is interesting, like Shiv does just like to sleep around a lot, which is interesting. I don't know if this is supposed to be something like Shiv is afraid to open up or something. I do kind of just like the angle of like she likes sex and she doesn't like Tom that much. And the great scene in the first episode where it's like, should we go back? Should we cancel our honeymoon? And he's like, Tom's like, no. Do you think we should cancel the honeymoon? And then she was like, no, of course not. Why would I want to? But do you want to cancel the honeymoon? It's like they can't communicate. They're not very good at communicating. They don't have goals that are together. Shiv keeps fucking undermining Tom. But who cares? Tom's an idiot. There is that one scene where Tom's like, I thought we wanted like the top spot for me. And it's like, shut the fuck up, Tom. Kill yourself. You're not doing this fucking job. Tom did have to fire that Nazi guy. Well, I guess Logan had to make that call eventually. But that was a cool little sub-storyline. My next note here is I was so happy when Gil and Shiv split up. Tom needs to fuck off. Obviously, he wasn't going to be the one running the company, loser. Empathy for Tom be pissing me off. True, I just said all that. But it is true. Shiv, like, quits from Gil. And I'm like, oh my god, it's real. Because at some point, Gil's like, I'll make you chief of staff if I become president. It's like, oh no, this is what's going to take her away. And she's going to betray her dad. And her dad's never going to give her this again. But she does quit. And it does come back later. When she, like, kind of offers a... Oh no, she gets information from them about the victim woman, which helps them in the end. True. Tom telling Shiv to fuck off was a big moment. True. They come over to Logan's... I fucked it up actually that time. To Roman's house for dinner, and like they're all making fun of Tom and like his suits. And it's so funny how like Shiv immediately like gangs up with Roman on Tom to make fun of like how he looks and stuff like that. And then uh Tom, they were having an argument about something before that, and Tom tells her to fuck off at the table, which he's never stood up to her before. And I love the little parts in Shiv's performance where it's like, this is also the case when he proposed to her, and like obviously she was like, this is like a terrible moment to do this, but she says yes anyway because she is actually like happy that they are doing this in a terrible time or whatever. It's like a very interesting thing, and it is interesting that she actually seems to like him back then. But like she just makes a funny face like she got told off by her older sibling or something, and she's like, yeah, whatever, I don't give a fuck if you tell me to fuck off, loser. Like it has no weight. And it felt very like sibling-esque, and the fact that she wasn't like another way this scene could have been written is her like putting her hand over her mouth, or her getting like mad, or her actually being shocked and hurt at this, or her striking back and being extra mean. But she just sort of like giggles it off, even though it's clearly like a big moment for Tom. I thought that was like great characterization. She has such interesting moments like that where it feels like a very, very, very unique character that like you've never seen before. Feels very personalized. Great stuff. They do have a scene later where she does get a little emotional when he's telling her that like the sad he would feel from being absent of her is less than the sadness he feels being with her or something, which is really interesting. Though I think they saved their marriage, I think, which is crazy. There was something about that Shiv scene that I was going to say where she's like immediately starts ganging up on him. It had to do with her reaction. What also is like that ultra sibling bond where like she's like on Roman's side in this, because you'd think a normal person would like, most of the time they would be defending their spouse and making fun of their brother, but it's sort of the other way around where it's just they're making fun of their spouse because that's like the thingy that she does with him is like make fun of him a lot. There's also this crazy tracking shot. I don't remember which episodes it's in. Get ready for the horny hour. But Shiv's actress walks past, and her butt looks so gigantic. It's like it is cheating. She is doing the shirt tucked into the like pants thing. But my goodness, I was like, this is crazy. Also, I found out that both of them, Tom and her, are British. Can you believe that? But I remember that crazy scene now. I don't remember what tracking shot it was as she was walking through what office, but that shit was crazy. I said, when do they start building white girls like this? This is crazy. But true, Tom told her to fuck off one time. Tom should shut up if he's enjoying all that, huh? But some other people are enjoying that too. She does fuck that that actor guy very quickly. True, and it's funny how she's almost trying, like she's doing enough to have plausible deniability that she's doing an ethical, open, non-monogamous marriage where she like tells that guy that she's in a relationship but it's open. But she like Tom has a line in another episode where he like says that she didn't tell him about that encounter until like 10 days later. So she's like ethically practicing with other people but not with Tom. And she's like constantly like, oh, you get things out of this too, Tom. And she's like coercing him through this. It's interesting. What a great dynamic. I love how he reacts to getting told off in the show by making a funny face and undermine the attacker. True, I guess Shiv does this a lot in general, where like people will get told off all the time and they'll just like kind of smirk and it like rolls off their back. And it's very interesting and cool because you feel like it should be a big moment for the character, and even if they do internalize it, it is like for me that would be like a not a trauma response, like a conflict response where it's like immediately like mock the idea of a conflict happening. And I feel like Shiv very much has this in her too. It's interesting. Whereas another person might be like, well, fuck you then, and they'll get into a little spat or something, where like the pride will come into it. But like, it's almost cooler if you like act like it doesn't matter at all, and then you like giggle with the person next to you, like you've got your own little in-joke or something. It's like a way to like dissuade the knockdown you're supposed to get from this power dynamic where somebody yells at you, so now they have a power and you look weak. It just like completely defects it, and now they look like a loser who just screamed at something and it had no effect. It's like a good little power move too. We love Shiv, what can we say? The show is starting to undo all the big emotional moments. Episode 3 is really about the abuse of Logan being displayed in the highest of ways. Oh, it feels like another potential jump the shark moment. It feels kind of not in character with him or the world. True, we're talking about Boar on the floor here, where he basically gets all of his employees and his family in a big room, except for Shiv. And like physically and like emotionally abuses them and humiliates them and tells a bunch of them to get on the floor and like eat food off the floor. And it feels like this feels like a fantastical show now. Like this doesn't feel real. Like why would anybody do this? And it's like, oh, the idea is they're so afraid to lose their jobs or whatever, they'll just do this. But it feels like because there are a lot of moments in this where Logan is just he's in a bad mood that episode and he's just like directly insulting people and like seeing what they can do. Like I know he does it to Frank. And then he sort of like figures out because then Kendall like undermines Roman and gets on his phone and figures out that he's the one that tried to call Naomi Pierce and like fucked up the whole thing, and that's what Logan is mad about. But Greg and Tom are all boring on the floor, like and running around and shit. And Logan's like asking for a response, and he's asking for who sold him out and all this shit. It's like a funny scene. It's like crazy, and it does it like while I was watching, I was like, oh no, this might be like a terrible scene. Like we might have gone too far. It might be a jumping the shark moment. But I think in retrospect, it's like a crazy thing. And I think Jerry even references it in a later episode where she's like, unless everybody wants a round of bore on the floor or something, we all better hurry the fuck up and fix this. So it's like, and it being referenced back to like that in a casual way sort of like solidified it as not a bad moment for me. But again, that's sort of part of the like aren't rich people evil type thing that the show feels like, and especially in moments where you get that tinkling of like jumping the shark, it definitely is like an easy thing to like try and jump at and blame. But we didn't. We did have the shooter episode. Greg breaks up with Tom, asks for an open relationship. True. And Tom gets very, very mad at this because he uses Greg as a proxy for his arguments with Shiv that he can't have. The abuse trickles down. I wonder who Greg is abusing. But yes, Greg like kind of gets out from underneath Tom. They kind of have their breakup scene here where they're just throwing water bottles at each other, or Tom is throwing water bottles at Greg. Just while there's other people in the room and stuff. And the two panic rooms, all good stuff. Pretty epic. Oh, and there's also a lot of fun drama at the beginning about like Shiv doesn't have an official role at the company. I'm pretty sure she still doesn't, but her like being around a lot and every character like suspecting her and like questioning her, and that's all a bit of fun at the beginning. And also I like that like it's kind of ambiguous whether or not Shiv quit or she got fired, because both her and Gil are trying to do the "you can't fire me, I quit" thing in the back of the car. But then everybody, because obviously they want to undermine her at the office, is like, oh, we know you lost your job or whatever, which is like kind of maybe true but not true. And that's like a very real life thing where it's like people mischaracterize things to make you like seem bad, and it's like kind of true because you have lack of confidence in yourself to think you did like the right thing or something, but they're also missing context, which makes you hate them and like want to punch them right then. That was a very cool little descriptive thing too. Logan's so worried about Kendall, and now we don't like it because he's being nice to him and we like Shiv. True. Logan is like very concerned about Kendall and asking about him in like the first few episodes, probably because he's like watching him as he like contemplates committing suicide by jumping off the balcony. But it's like, oh, they're like, now that you don't want them to have like a nice moment, he's kind of like caring about him. There was a fun moment where Jerry called Kendall the firstborn son by accident and kind of got mad. Kendall standing up for Logan hitting people, it's kind of goofy. I don't know why I wrote down it's kind of goofy, implying that right after that I didn't like it, but I don't know, I liked it. And true, my last note is about the who's going to get killed thing at the end. I'm sure there's a bunch of things I didn't mention. The episode where they're at that like a rich person place, like the retreat, and they're trying to win over all this stuff, trying to win over the Pierce ma'am, I think her name was, or Nan. I liked all that stuff. That stuff was really cool. She was a cool character. Ray's inclusion was cool. Like the whole the cringiest episode of all time is that Scotland episode where they're all trying to undermine each other by cringing. And like Logan has that scene where he doesn't get out of the house even though everybody's waiting for him, and like the family's waiting in the doorway, and it's like, oh my god, how did the underlings explain to the family that he didn't want to come in, and like that's such a cringe thing. I will note this is that Succession does save us from cringe a lot, because people will do really cringe things, but we never see people's reaction. They just sort of walk off and go, well, that was fucking cringe. And then like the camera cuts. Like this happens with Roman when he's talking to his soccer team that he bought. He thought he bought his dad's soccer team, but he bought like the wrong club. That was pretty funny. And there's also the one like Kendall doing the rap, which again is the worst scene in anything I've ever seen in my life. It's so bad. Um, like the cringe isn't in a lot of people reacting. Like all the characters are reacting, but it's like Roman telling him to shut the fuck up and stop it. But Shiv is like dying at like the embarrassment. I also like that his date was like totally into it. Greg was obviously totally into it. And all that. What a great thing. But we do cut away from like the cringe reactions of other people. And just focus in on the characters, which I think is great at putting you in their like perspectives at certain times. Um, that was cool. There were all sorts of, because there was the two families meeting and like they were all clashing and undermining and making jokes that the other ones were taking wrong and stuff like that. And then the one after that, they were all trying to like hurry a process along. Oh, there was also when they all had to go on that panel. Um, and Shiv kind of called Logan a dinosaur that she needed to get rid of, and everybody was upset about that. That's why Roma gets hit in the end. There's also the Marsha, the like Rhea stuff, where she asks her if she's getting tested all the time, and that's like the cringiest scene you've ever seen in your life. Um, Now I don't know if Marsha and Logan are gonna get a divorce. That's definitely like a coming plot line in season 3. It might be that Marsha is just not in the show anymore or something. Um, but that was all interesting because Logan and Rhea don't seem to be continuing. Um, I also love the order of events of like everybody starts speculating about whether or not Logan and Ray are sleeping together, and then they do. That's kind of how it works in real life, I find. Where it's like people are hanging out and they're like in the getting to know each other phase, but like nobody's admitted anything yet, and everybody else around them starts teasing them, and it's only like after that or after everybody starts speculating about it that it like actually happens. And it's kind of like gives it the hit um the jump start, I guess. Oh, there's also the great scene with the mother where the mother does not want to have an emotional conversation with her kids, but she does want to have Christmas with them. But just to like, who knows why she wants that? That's like the thing where mothers are evil, but they still want like those things that are supposed to be traditionally happy, even though they know it's not going to make anybody happy, or maybe they've just deluded themselves into thinking it's going to make them happy to have the kids there for Christmas. I'm assuming in season 3 at some point there will be a Christmas episode with them all in London. Sounds interesting. Also, again, the grandmother is the grandmother from Black Sails, and her performance as that is one of the greats of all time. So here it's pretty good too. I was gonna say something more about her. Oh yeah, just her and like because again, it's another restraint thing where it would have been a fascinating moment to have Kendall have that honest conversation and confess everything to his mother. Um, but like he doesn't, and she runs away from that conversation. Um, Great stuff. Great stuff. The other speculative piece is like whether or not Logan is going to use the um, Kendall's culpability in the killing of that kid against him. Um, my assumption is he's probably not going to immediately, and then like maybe if he's pushed right into a corner, he will threaten to do it, but something will undermine the tension before he can do that. It's like my best guess. God, I kind of just want to wrap up this review and go watch the next episode. It's going to be so fun. Um, is there anything else to say? Greg, Rhea, True, we talked about all of them. We talked about all the people in the business. We've got Connor. Connor's annoying. He's the worst. We all hate him. Um, I don't know if he's ever going to, like, try and make a play for the company. It's clear he still wants, like, he's always begging people to ask him to do it. He's also got his political campaign, but he's asked his dad for money, and his dad, in return, wanted him to quit his campaign. There is a distinct possibility that he literally becomes president in the show because, I mean, what's a TV show not going to do? Not have a ridiculous guy as president? Like, Donald Trump has served 2 terms. So that's definitely not out of the possibility. And this next season coming in is like oh no, actually, I was thinking next season is like 2021, which means it's after Donald Trump got reelected. But no, that was 2024. I was like confusing my years because everything's so similar. Also, it'll be interesting to see if COVID is at all affected. Like I can see any COVID effects on this show, where it's like, oh, there's not very many people in this scene. Interesting. Because it did come out in 2021, which implies to me at least that it was shot in 2020 a little bit. Interesting. Like there's that season of You that was shot during COVID, but I don't remember noticing anything from that. So I don't know. We'll see. True. Isn't it funny where I skipped up a 4-year period because the 2020s have all been 1 year. Now we're in the 6th year of the 2020s. Can you believe it? But I'm truing right now. Anybody else truing right now? Does anybody think that time is moving slowly? Maybe if you're like starving to death or something. True, they went back to that kid's house. Oh, the Kendall thing where he's just like sort of lurking in the kitchen or whatever. That was really good. I like that a lot. It's like when your mother goes over someplace and you're probably supposed to go in with her, but you don't, and you just go hide somewhere else. And it's like, oh, maybe nobody will notice me if I hide in here. And then one guy does, and it's kind of a brief conversation. It wasn't as bad as you were expecting, and they leave. Like, I've been in that exact conversation. I even killed a kid. That stuff was all great. Oh, there's also the Logan's brother. He came back and he told Greg to like leave the company or he wouldn't get his inheritance, and Greg decided to go with the company. And it seemed like a really, really bad decision for a second there. Oh my god, I just realized that Tom and Greg can't be on the same side because it's part of the Kendall ploy. Greg's gonna be throwing Tom right under the fucking bus. He's gonna say, Tom made me get those papers out. I'm innocent. He pressured me into doing it. It's actually Tom's fault. At the direction of Logan Roy. Wasn't it funny how the Bill guy showed back up just to like threaten Logan and get away with it? That was great. I don't want to kill Bill if we have to see Bill, Tom says. And Tom's always like, fuck Bill. Even though everybody loves Bill. Terrific stuff. I was saying something right before that, wasn't I? I want more Frank. Frank's cool. We like Frank. And he was kind of just a background piece for this old season. Greg turning on Tom's throwing him under the bus. That's definitely gonna happen. Could Connor be on like Kendall's side? No, he'll probably be on Logan's side or something. Maybe it'll be a fake both sides or something. This is gonna be interesting. We got civil war going on, but we know the stakes this time, unlike in season 1. And it's purely out of selfish reasons. Which side are people gonna be on? And now that I'm looking at this image over here, it is down the line on what I expect the sides to be. So, interesting. Though I'm pretty sure I did see this image when I googled Succession season 2. So, I hope it is actually a season 2 visual. There's no characters in it I don't recognize. So, anyway, I want to switch this fucking episode. So everybody needs to fuck off. I probably will finish it quickly. I'm probably like a bunch of episodes in by the time this is uploaded, so that'll be funny. So you might see the next review in like a week. I was very busy towards the end of the month, and by weekends I'm busy recording things for group discussions and stuff like that. So sometimes you just gotta wait. Sometimes things don't work out in the schedule. You understand. Anyway, we'll see you back with Succession Season 3 soon. Check out all the other videos. We're doing a Dunk and Egg weekly review series, though if you like that show, you probably won't like those reviews. And by we, I mean me and Elite RE, but Elite RE has dropped a show. So I'll be doing it solo from, oh my god, it's tomorrow, isn't it? No, it's the day after tomorrow. I've got End of Ava to discuss tomorrow. End of Ava and the Naruto part 2 or Naruto episode 2 discussion is also already out, so check those out if you like those too. I'm making main channel videos too. Will I make a main channel Succession video? Definitely not until I finish it, but maybe after that. You'll have to see. You have to go and subscribe and all that stuff. Anyway, that's it. See you back for season 3. Support links in the description below. Thanks.